Hey, Paul.
Hey, guys.
The last episode of the year.
Can't believe it. Hey?
Yeah, I brought it a week early. Unfortunately, next week is a hectic week for us. We got a lot going on, and literally, no slot for the pod. So this is the last one for 2024. But I'm incredibly proud to be doing this show today, because I think we've achieved a hell of a lot this year on the podcast, and both on the podcast and in our personal and professional lives. So I'm very proud of where we are now for the year. I'm very proud of what we've done. And first thanks to go out is to you, Paul.
Hey.
Because obviously this show, I'm not interested in doing a pod where I sit and interview people week in and week out. It's just not my scene. And, one of the things I learned early on, that if you want to do something that's got longevity and, you can push on, you have to enjoy it.
Yeah.
If it's something that you're forcing, you're never going to stick with it. So consistency is key, but you only get the consistency when there's that, I want to go do this thing. So you need someone to sit opposite me, blabbering away, flicking the camera angles and dealing with my cuck and asking you, hey, Paul, when are we going to do the show? Have you got space? So I wouldn't be able, the show wouldn't exist without you, Paul. And really, the big thanks goes to you for week in and week out, regardless of how busy you are at work, regardless of your family commitments at home. You are here to meet me on the pod, and we've done a lot of them this year. So thank you, Paul.
No, guys, thanks very much. And thanks to you from our side. I mean, I suppose I've got to say a massive thank you for stringing me along on this journey. From the get-go, it's it's been quite a ride. We've had a lot of ups and downs over the last 4 years, but this year has been particularly exciting. I mean, I remember our first show at the beginning of the year. You had been very busy over the December month period. I was busy moving house last year and doing all sorts of things, but I wasn't here. You were, and I remember coming back in January and you'd reconfigured the whole studio pretty much by yourself. Listen, this is how things are going to work. And, to do the pod this year has actually been a hell of a lot easier than what it has been in previous years because of the work and the prep that was put in at the beginning of the year. So, man, it's an absolute joy, man. I love it. It's just come in and, get to catch up and do some cockpit talk.
Yeah.
That we wouldn't ordinarily get to. I mean, it's been so busy this year for you and I that we've literally, I think, had beers together once this whole year. So absolute madness. So I suppose the pod takes up for that, and it's a joy, man. It's lacquer, and the network is just incredible as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the network. It wouldn't be anything without the people actually tuning in and watching. But just to give you some figures here, we've got 100. Well over 100,000 views in the last 365 days. 5.8 thousand watch time hours, and this year alone, since the beginning of the year, we've picked up 10.2 thousand subscribers. So it was a massive year for the pod. Really massive year. Haven't seen numbers close to that, and it's not for the numbers. We're not chasing those numbers, but it's nice to know when you do the show that it's reaching a few more ears, and then it also encourages you then to make sure what you're saying has some, credibility, and at least adds what more so than the credibility, a little bit of drive and motivation. That's the main. If anyone takes anything out of what we say, it's sort of that. And I think, I think people enjoy watching two mates have a chat.
Yeah.
And, it's been a wonderful, wonderful year from the pod. It's been difficult in that, we've set high standards for ourselves and we want to improve all the time. But the more you improve, the harder it becomes to actually then make a change. And sometimes when you make a change, you go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And then you have to course correct and let's go back. And we tried a few things this year, and we know already, and I think a lot of people must find this in the everyday work that you do. You get a bit of a methodology where you have a process for how you do things. And then you think, hey, there's a new bit of software out. There's something I can do. Why don't I add this in? And then you add that in, and it improves your product. It's like, no, this is now working better. But the problem is it takes time away from something else, because if it's more work and more effort now, then suddenly you're not putting in that work and effort somewhere else. So something else then takes a dive. So it's all about finding a balance. And obviously with kids and that at home, the balance is everything.
Yeah.
You know, you can't dedicate your 23 hours a day to the pod because you have responsibilities, work, and particularly home. So the trick this year for us was finding that balance and making sure that the podcast kept doing well, it kept growing, and it kept improving, but you were still present at home, you're still able to take a bit of leave. And that's where the difficulty came in. So me being proud is not because we're the world premier aviation podcast. I'm proud because we've managed to balance those things out. And for that, I'm incredibly proud. The last thanks from my side as well for the years to Simero as well. If it wasn't for Simero, we wouldn't be here. Couple of stray dogs during COVID, and we managed to get picked up and work, give us a lot of a meaning in our own lives, and also give us some responsibility to go and build something, which we have. And I'm incredibly proud of what we've managed to do here at Simero, and the type of product that we're offering. I'm incredibly proud, and I'll stand by it every day of the week. It's tough at times, but man, it's rewarding. We've had so many youngsters come through and train this year that, you know, weren't so hot at the beginning, but by the time they left, they were flying really well, and it really gives you a real sense of satisfaction that we've played some role in making the African skies safer. That's been a major thing for me, and that's what it's all about, is making aviation better and safer. But it takes a special human to do it, to work with, like yourself, because we literally eat, breathe, and sleep this aviation gig. Yeah. Because if we're not doing it in the office, we're talking about it on the pod, and it actually just takes over your entire life, because it becomes it's involved in every conversation. You mentioned we've been for drinks once this year. Yeah. And that's not that we haven't spoken. It's just when we have been speaking and chatting, it's been about aviation. Yeah, exactly. And aviation, I mean, it's we had my old man on this year. That was a huge highlight for me. My old man is the epitome of someone that lives, eats, and breathes aviation. And I think people are still taken aback by that episode. Yeah, listening to him recall names and places and registrations, and that's him. He is just an aviation nut, with a drive and passion for teaching that I've never seen in anyone in my years of aviation. So, yeah, it's. I think people tuning into the show now going, geez, what are they doing? Are they? Is this a show just about them? But it is the last show of the year, and it's the first Shoot the Breeze episode that we're doing for the year. Yeah. The Shoot the Breeze idea initially came about was we don't really get a chance to be sort of podcasty type on the show normally, because we're talking about, you know, real stuff. So the Shoot the Breeze episode came about. Let's just wing it, and let's just have a chat. And I guess that's what it is. So if you came in tuning in for the latest aviation news this week, you're not going to get it, unfortunately, but we will chat about, you know, what's happened through the year. And obviously I'm saying, you know, that highlight from my side with my old man, that was a real major, you know, it was important to me. He did episode number 1.
Yeah.
And then, for him to come on and episode number 200, it was really nice. And my old man gets such a kick out of talking about this industry that he loves. But Paul, other highlights, I think South African aviation seems to be in a total different space now, talking today, than where we were, even at the beginning of the year. It just seems stronger. It seems more robust. Of course, there's things going on with a few local airlines, the likes of SAFair and the things that are going on. But these are stories, and I believe they'll be cleared up. The important thing is that the industry here, for me, the way in our research and talking about it, there's been difficulties with ATNS and AXA at times, but this is so minor comparing it to a few years ago when you were wondering, are there ever going to be planes flying around South Africa again?
Yeah, well, you touch on something I was just thinking about while you're talking is what we've seen now, especially towards the end of this year, is definitely the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of positivity that we were talking about 3 years ago when, we were trying to look for the light at the end of the tunnel. And the way things are right now, like you said, despite all the cuck that's going on, it's still a definite essence of positivity and movement in our industry. I mean, there's more and more youngsters getting into the airliners at
a young age
with less experience. So, it's positive. There's a severe bounce movement and lots of colleagues in it finding better opportunities over border. So, I think when we set out in the beginning to be more positive and motivational, I think this year, especially the last few months, there's been a good spin-off from that, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us going,
Yeah, it does. So what gives you the motivation to keep going? You took a road less traveled, similar to me. A lot of that was due to you and I having young families. So, my little daughter was born during the COVID shutdown, and it was a large part of where we are today is because of decisions that you make. And, I think you and I are not immune to the thoughts of, should we be doing this? Should we not be flying at an airline? And I think I know for you is the same. It all really came down to what's best for my family.
Yeah.
And that's why that decision was made. So you don't need any motivation when you've got that behind. And that's not because flying is bad when you have a family. It's just at the time, what was the best thing to do? And probably for me was to be at home, and then I needed to take up a different role. But Ryan, it's come with its own challenges.
Hey, of course.
Come with it's different when you're flying. You're almost immune to a lot of what's happening. Your job is specific. You get in the aircraft, and your job is to go and execute a flight from A to B in the safest possible way. And when you land on the other side, your job is kind of done, and then it starts up again the next day when you fly. And I didn't really realize that when I was flying, how cool that actually is, because to be able to switch on and switch off like that, it's quite it's a nice lifestyle to have. Whereas with us here, you kind of always on. But also what I realized is, and a lot of parallels here with the podcast, you start doing something and you've got your baseline knowledge, you've got enough knowledge to do what you do, but then it just needs to keep building. And the only way to do that is to do courses, research, keep working, reading, look at other podcasts, try and get better. It doesn't just happen. Whereas our job for the last few years in flying an aircraft, you're always honing that skill. Yeah. You're going for recurrent training. You're developing your skills all the time, whether you even think about it, but you're always working on this thing. Now you branch off into a slightly different, in the same industry, but it's a slightly different career. Now you got to start working. You have to develop these skills, keep working all the time, and that's a difficult part. It's a cool part as well. It's difficult. That's why it's good for you.
Yeah.
But
I think as well, pilots also take a large amount of pride in having a sense of purpose. You know, and following COVID, not only did you lose your sort of identity as a pilot, but the lack of purpose, I think, is what hit a lot of us.
Yeah.
So we replaced it. We had motivation in terms of positivity and that never say die attitude, as well as being motivated to keep going for the family. But the sense of purpose was to be, around for your kids, and then redirecting that energy and just finding another way to use our skills and our talents. And it's been cool, man. It's a continuous learning curve.
Yeah, it is.
None of it's easy, flipping hard work, but it's a joy. And the pod is what I think rounds it all up nicely for us. So yeah, I dig it, man. And hoping to do a lot more and keep going and growing and getting better at it.
So if you and I had an open discussion now, because we actually haven't really had this discussion, it's been in my mind, but where I want to take the pod is to create an aviation media. So the podcast will be a branch of that aviation media side of thing. I like boosting the pilots. I like being I always say, not to forget about cabin crew. But if you go to an event, there was the the summit there at Sanson that I spoke at. It was a wonderful event. Lots of big CEOs there, lots of people's faces that you recognize, a lot of decision makers in the company. I didn't count one pilot. There were no pilots there.
Yeah, they're all busy flying.
They're all busy flying, but they are such a critical part of an airline. Yet the pilots are, their skill set's very different. You go out and fly, and I feel like the pilots don't always get the recognition that they should in this industry. And I would like next year to be able to start. I would love to have an event, a proper event in Johannesburg. You hire out a facility. I've looked at it. There's some nice places available. Got a bar area, proper thing. And you have an awards ceremony for pilots. You go to all the airlines and you have a proper awards thing. And I think we can do something like it. I'd love to do something like that. And you know me. The only way I get things done is if I broadcast it so that you have to now do it.
Because now you're technically committed.
Yeah, you're technically committed. But I think it's necessary. I would love to do that. So that's sort of my angle with the pod. We mentioned those numbers with YouTube and that. Numbers are awesome. The revenue that was made through YouTube is pretty minimal because of you need massive numbers. For it to become a proper revenue stream.
What's it now, about $9?
Yeah. No, it's about probably about $66 or something. But that's not, that's never been the drive.
No, not at all.
But it's also never been the goal just to have the pod and then let's just see where it goes. The pod is a part of a bigger picture. But man, do I love the pod. I love what we speak about with this industry. I've grown to love this industry even more since doing the podcast. I feel closer to it than I ever have because you're reporting on it all the time. And we don't always get it right. You don't always get it right. Let me tell you, sitting here, and you can vouch for this. You get I throw you a question or there's a news story, and within 1 or 2 seconds, you have to formulate a response. And that response sometimes afterwards, you're driving home and you say, but why did I say that? I didn't really even think that.
Yeah.
And then you try and cover up for it next week and you say, I made a mistake here or there. But that's half the point. And I think as you get better with it, then as your knowledge of the industry improves, you're able to answer those questions quicker with a bit more competence. But every now and again, it's a subject that you're not 100% up to speed with, and then you have to formulate a response. But the non-perfect side of the show is the show. The day that we're sitting in here and it's this cookie-cutter show that is...
I don't think we'll ever get that right.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're talking like that. I saw a funny meme on Facebook yesterday, but it was quite true. It was a picture of like a picture on the wall with a whole probably about 10 or 20 arrows shot around it, obviously aiming for a target, and then another one with a barrel with all the quivers and the barrel in it. It was like, well, which one are you going to choose? There's the more correct one is obviously take a shot, see where you land. I think at least we do get out here every week and give it a stab. You don't always get it right, like you say, but the most important part is we have fun doing it, and
that's it.
And we get the odd laugh out of it.
Any bit of news this year, aviation-wise, that you want to keep following or keep a closer eye on? I know we make fun of the eVTOL side of things because of the the investment angle, the horrendous financial advice that we offer. So watching that's quite interesting, for me. Seeing what, if this really does take off, quite keen. I quite like that side of things.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch as well. Particularly with what's going on in the States.
Pilot-wise.
Yeah. There was this massive expansion there. Now it seems to be, toning down a bit. Obviously with Boeing, I think Boeing is going to be an interesting one to follow.
Do you find it difficult to even report on that now, when we speak about it? Because if you look what's happening in Europe and companies in the UK, I think even BA taking non-UK citizens and stuff now. You've never seen stuff like that before. But then you have these sort of pockets where there's a major shortage. And then you hear in the States that there's some furloughs going on. And the furloughs kind of make sense because of the Boeing situation. Spirit now, I think they filed for Chapter 11. So there'll be some pilots looking for jobs there. And it's a hard one to report on. Massive growth still in the Middle East. You saw that picture with all the... Saffers that got their commands at Fly Dubai. I mean, some of those guys, it wasn't long ago. They haven't been there that long to get the command.
Exactly.
So well done to all the guys there. Doing us proud in the UAE.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that. And I think, aviation-wise, news stories, I don't know. I think it's so evolving. I think domestically it's going to be interesting to see what happens with SAFAir. Hopefully they get that sorted out fairly quickly. And I think podcast-wise, I just want to see like the network grow a whole lot more. I've really enjoyed the engagement that we get on the podcast every week, and there's been more and more engagement every week. So, I'd love to see a lot more of that.
I agree. You're good with it. You're good with the engagement. The guys contact you quite a lot and... feed you gen as to what's going on. But I agree with you. The network side of it is key because it's the guys then throw a question back often. And sometimes, like Andy Evans, I mean, he gives a response and it's this real detailed, it's like an article that he's written out, he sends you, and it's like so valuable. It gives you so much insight into that thing you were speaking about. Without those things, it's actually quite difficult because you're not then basing your opinion on anything. So I agree.
It's actually often, that's the one thing that strikes me the most is the amount of really smart people that listen to us. And the smart replies. Like, fuck, I feel like an idiot. But that's what's cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I agree. It is that. You think, shit. Yeah, I should have formulated that response a bit better. But I think, that's half of it. And I think people would appreciate when you are on the pod and that mic is there, and now you have to. That's why I love the episode with my dad so much, because we were able to talk quite naturally.
Yeah.
And we've done a couple of pods where we, with other people we haven't sent out, because they just don't always work.
Yeah.
You have to, formulate those responses. It's not always easy. So we're going to keep a close eye on the industry next year, make sure that our stories, our coverage, keeps getting better. What I have enjoyed this year is obviously the introduction of AI has made things like research and that much easier, because before I would basically go on and you got to flick through websites to find stories, but now with AI it can scrape the stories for you, can find stories from different parts of the world, and that's the thing that's been interesting for me. If you're always taking your stories from a particular source, it tends to have a bit of a leaning angle. We saw it with the US elections. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
It's always been obvious, but it's even more obvious now. Where do you get your media from? If you're getting it from a particular channel, if you're getting it from a magazine, if you're getting it from a bullshit newspaper, it's there to try and sell. But when you're doing it every week, when you're talking every week like we are, then I think it builds an element of trust. Who are these guys? They're speaking, are their opinions changing naturally with yours? And that's the whole thing. If your opinions change and your ideas change, it means you're evolving, and it means you're a real person with real ideas.
Yeah.
Like I said, to that Jordan Peterson thing, in order to be able to speak, you have to risk being offensive.
Yeah.
And it's, we've tried our hardest to not be offensive. That's not the point. Don't want to be offensive for no reason. But I think the engagement comes because it's just two normal oaks talking about an industry that they love.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's an element of trust there. So there's a lot of bullshit out there. There's a lot of rubbish reporting. There is some
charlatans. Don't forget, there's
charlatans
out there that are out there to try and
there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of nonsense in the world. There's a huge amount of nonsense. A lot of it is to try and bring, instead of climbing yourself, you try and bring someone down so you can. There's a lot of this, and one needs to watch out for things like that. And we will carry on being what we hope, a source of inspiration to someone looking at getting into the industry, a source of support and humor to people already in the industry.
Yeah. And
our promise to you is that we'll keep trying to improve. We'll keep trying to make sure the product is world-class, make sure that the SAFers around the world are proud that they have an aviation podcast that their mates in Australia don't, and all the rest. Because it's so niche, but we've got one, and I'm that's our promise to you guys. So
for sure.
Thank you so much, everyone, and again, thank you, Paul.
No, thank you guys. It's been an absolute joy. It's been a hell of a ride this year. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and you must have a good festive season and actually try and take a break this time.
Before we even get there, though, the F1 is not over.
No.
What's happening with F1? Did you watch the UFC last week?
Yeah.
There's rugby this weekend. The Springboks are top of the pile in the world. When the Springboks are number one, South Africa is number one just in general.
All the way.
I have, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have, heard this with their friends and that this year, just at the local bar. It's been evident to me that a lot of the people that are here are quite content with the country at the moment. We haven't had load shedding in a long time. Like I say, when the Springboks are playing on a Saturday, there's no better place in the world to be than South Africa. It really is an awesome place to be. Of course, we have our huge amount of negative things, but we're not going to focus on those things.
No.
So F1, Max, is he on to win his fourth title?
I think it's on the cards, man. He's virtually unstoppable.
And
Depends on what happens in Vegas this week?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's true. And are you still going F1 Ferrari next year, or are you making a switch there?
I'm changing my colors. Look, I might just go full McLaren next year. I don't know. I haven't
full Lando,
or
full McLaren.
McLaren.
Piastri is
Piastri's
a
also
beast.
another level. He's driving like so. That's why I know McLaren. I think they've got my vote for next year. We'll see.
Speaking about media, speaking about elections and media and the type of media that's out. So Netflix hosted an absolute abortion of a boxing match.
Fuck.
Which now it almost, I mean, now there's talk about contracts being out where he wasn't allowed to knock this guy out.
Yeah.
And then there's pictures there. I don't know how true they are, where he's like, the guy's face is there and he's actually dropping his hand to miss with the punch.
Do you remember I said to you a couple of days before the fight, I said, have you seen all this crap on YouTube where they'd already generated the outcome of this fight? There was so much crap and fake news around this whole fight that I think this whole thing's flopped. Completely flopped.
No, it's totally. Look, it hasn't flopped for their bank accounts because they, 50 million odd each USD is not the worst thing in the world. But from a media perspective, Patrick Bet David, PBD podcast. If you don't know what that is, go check it out. Patrick Bet David show is excellent. During the elections there, they hosted a live event. I don't know if you watched that thing. It was basically from 9 in the evening their time till 2 o'clock in the morning their time, basically just covering the elections in a live fashion. The reason being was you're going to get honest media, unbiased, not trying to please any sponsors or things like that. That's why people went and watched. Now, Netflix are hosting boxing matches. Was this a legitimate? Is that legitimate? Or is it going to be real sport in there? Because that wasn't real sport.
It wasn't real sport, and I don't think Netflix have got the.
They don't have the server capacity.
No, because I mean, there were so many people that were upset about the whole thing collapsing 5 minutes before the fight started. So, I don't think they got what it takes yet. Unfortunately for them.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So stick to Yellowstone and.
Yeah. No, cool, pal. And again, last thing, just thanks to everyone. Patrons especially, couldn't have done it without you. There'll be some updates to the studio next year. All thanks to your inputs and your donations through the year. Ryan and I absolutely love this show. We love you guys. We love the show, and we love this industry. And we'll see you next year.
Have a good one. Take care.
Bye for now.